The air grates with iron and reeks of rotting felt. Victorian asylums overflowed by 30% in 1870, and every key turn echoes with dread. Wonderland was not a trippy dream. It was a survival guide for a girl lost in the rigid, crumbling logic of the Victorian era. The industry of madness. In 1865, Lewis Carroll, born Charles Dodgson, worked as a logician while Britain tightened its industrial grip and social conventions grew more punishing. Hat makers suffered real mercury poisoning. The phrase "mad as a hatter" recorded tremors, memory loss, and paranoid behavior caused by mercury used in felt production. The prison of time. The white rabbit is more than a whimsical animal. He is a symbol of the crushing Victorian obsession with punctuality and the fear of social failure, a reaction to factory clocks and an ordered society that measured worth by timetables. Punctuality became a kind of prison. The social exile of the mad. The Queen of Hearts reads like a house of cards, a portrait of fragile power that rules by fear rather than wisdom. Folklore and literal histories collide here. Carroll layered absurdity and critique so that each character can be read as myth, as social warning, or as both. Questions remain. Did he hide answers or only puzzles? The evidence points to both. If you value uncovering the dark, hidden legacies that history tried to bury, leave a like and subscribe to join our community of mystic seekers. Which Wonderland character do you relate to the most? Let us know in the comments below. Industry of madness. Mercury on the felt. In the heart of Luton, attic workshops hum day and night. Rows of rabbit pelts hang from splintered beams, their fur stained a sickly orange. The process begins with a brush dipped in mercuric nitrate, a chemical that seeps into the skin and clings to the air. Workers, mostly women and children, spread the solution across each pelt, hands raw from the acid bite. The smell is sharp, metallic, impossible to escape. As pelts dry in the damp, unventilated rooms, mercury vapor thickens, invisible but everywhere. Stockport's mills echo with a different rhythm. Heavier vats, larger batches, but the same silent threat. The carroting sheds stay warm to speed the reaction, pushing mercury into every breath. After a day or two, the pelts are beaten with whisks or sticks, releasing clouds of dust and vapor. Each inhalation draws mercury deeper into the lungs. The dust settles on faces, hair, bread at midday. This was not rare. Hat makers across the country reported tremors and paranoia, the industrial reality behind the phrase, "mad as a hatter." No warning signs hang on these walls. The only barrier between poison and body is the thin skin of a hand, the shallow breath of a tired apprentice. In Luton alone, thousands repeat these steps every week, their lives shadowed by the silent, creeping touch of mercury. The poison does not announce itself. It slips in quietly on the back of every breath, every shift, every hat that leaves the workshop. Context matters. In 1865, Lewis Carroll, Charles Dodgson, a logician, published Alice's Adventures in Wonderland in a Britain shaped by industrial hazard, strict social codes, and an obsession with order. This is the industry of madness, and the cost of fashion was human. The smell of damp stone, the metallic rattle of iron keys, breath-clouding lamplight in a corridor where every step feels like evidence of something gone wrong. In the same air, a child's laugh could sound dangerous. In 1865, Lewis Carroll, whose given name was Charles Dodgson, a mathematician and logician, published Alice's Adventures in Wonderland into a society bound by rigid class rules and the grinding forces of industrial change. This is where fantasy and fact begin to blur. The industry of madness. Erethism was the silent thief inside every hatter's body. The first signs were almost invisible, a slight quiver in the hands, a word forgotten mid-sentence, a glance that lingered too long. As weeks became years, the symptoms sharpened. Hands shook so badly that pouring tea became impossible. Memory slipped, names of children and streets lost in a fog. Paranoia crept in, turning laughter at the pub into suspicion, friends into imagined enemies. Doctors labeled it erethism, a cluster of tremor, paranoia, and memory loss. By the mid-1800s, the damage was so widespread that it had a number. In Danbury, Connecticut, a Union survey found 43 out of 100 hatters showed clear signs of mercury poisoning. British medical reports echoed the same pattern. Tremors so constant that older workers could not feed themselves. Paranoia so deep that some locked themselves away, convinced of plots that did not exist. Employers blamed gin and bad habits, but the Union's medical report cut through the denial. The cause was mercury. Hatters called it the Danbury Shakes, or simply the curse. The Mad Hatter, with wild eyes and nervous hands, was not a fantasy. He was a portrait of real suffering, drawn from thousands who lost themselves to an invisible vapor. Wonderland's madness was chemical, not just literary, a nightmare that began in the lungs and ended in the mind. The prison of time. Next, we examine the White Rabbit as a symbol of the crushing Victorian obsession with punctuality and the fear of social failure. The social exile of the mad. Here we trace how sufferers were pushed to the margins, from workshop benches to workhouses and asylums, and how folklore grew to fill the silence. We present folklore alongside historical evidence, and we leave interpretation open. The mystery remains, and the debate belongs to you. The stone is cold and damp. The smell of wet mortar and old straw hangs in the air. Iron keys rattle in the distance, and a clock somewhere coughs and marks minutes like a sentence. Wonderland was not a trippy dream. It was a survival guide for a girl lost in the rigid, crumbling logic of the Victorian era. The industry of madness. In the background of the story, industrial poisons and workshop rules shaped the language of madness. The phrase "mad as a hatter" came from a grim reality. Hatmakers exposed to mercury developed tremors, hallucinations, and paranoia, symptoms recorded in 19th century medical reports. 1865 is the year Lewis Carroll, whose given name was Charles Dodgson, published Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Dodgson was a mathematician and logician, writing as Britain weathered industrial change and tightening social codes. The prison of time. In 1847, the British Parliament debated what once seemed a trivial quarrel, the chaos of local clocks. Every town in England kept its own time, set by the sun and the church tower, so that noon in Oxford might lag 10 minutes behind noon in London. The rails changed everything. As trains stitched the country together, the need for a single synchronized time became urgent. Telegraph wires soon stretched from city to city, carrying not just messages, but the pulse of the new order. At the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, a master clock ticked out the official time, its signal racing down copper lines to railway stations and post offices across the country. By the early 1850s, the Great Western Railway synchronized all its clocks to Greenwich Mean Time. By 1855, most major lines followed, and in 1858, the Standard Time Act forced the last holdouts to abandon their local hours. The telegraph-linked clock became a symbol of progress and of control. No longer could workers or travelers claim ignorance. The master clock's authority was absolute, its reach enforced by wires buried under streets and fields. The White Rabbit in Alice becomes plainer through this lens. He is not only a comic device, he is a figure of social terror, a symbol of the crushing Victorian obsession with punctuality and the fear of public failure. Time ceases to be neutral. It becomes a jailer that measures respectability and punishes lateness. The social exile of the mad. Power in Wonderland carries its own fragility. The Queen of Hearts reads like a house of cards, a caricature of leaders who rule by fear rather than wisdom. Folklore and clinical records overlap here. Some readers see personal trauma and social satire. Others see industrial and medical histories that made certain behaviors dangerous and visible. Both readings matter, and both leave questions open. Between 1847 and 1860, the country shed a patchwork of hours and adopted a new discipline, regulated by policy and powered by technology. The machinery of punctuality was not just convenience. It demanded obedience and reshaped daily life around the relentless tick of a distant, unseen clock. We present the folklore and the facts together, and we stop short of a final verdict. The mystery remains, an invitation to argue in the dark. If you value uncovering the dark, hidden legacies that history tried to bury, leave a like and subscribe to join our community of mystic seekers. Which Wonderland character do you relate to the most? Let us know in the comments below. The Prison of Time. A factory bell rings before sunrise, its echo chasing workers through muddy streets. Anyone not inside by the final clang faces a locked gate and a penalty. Rule books copied in neat copper plates spell it out: 1 penny for every 10 minutes late. For a child earning 8 shillings a week, that is the price of supper. 3 late arrivals in a week mean dismissal, no appeal, no warning. At Stockport's Cresta Mills, the fine rises to 2 pence for every 5 minutes. In Lancashire, ledgers show a spinner docked 3 pence for being 15 minutes late, the loss entered in red ink. Railway companies go further. A porter at Paddington was fined a shilling for an 8-minute delay, then dismissed after a second offence. In 1861, records from Euston list 47 clerks and guards sacked for missing the clock's demand. The threat is constant, heavy as the ticking of the master clock wired from Greenwich. Every minute lost is a public failure. Fines are posted for all to see. Dismissal means hunger, eviction, or the workhouse. For many, anxiety becomes a second skin, checking the watch, listening for the bell, hearts racing with each tick. The White Rabbit's panic, the words, oh dear, I shall be too late," is not a child's joke, but a daily terror. His waistcoat and trembling watch are the badges of a society where time is both ruler and executioner. In Wonderland, the rabbit is every worker, running from a judgment that never stops, trapped by rules written in someone else's hand. Social exile of the mad. The House of Cards rule. The Queen of Hearts rules with spectacle, not substance. Her court is a house of cards, rows of trembling courtiers, faces pale, waiting for the next outburst. Every command is a performance, every punishment a warning to the rest. Off with their heads is not just a threat, it is the theater of fear staged for maximum effect. In Victorian England, public executions and floggings drew crowds, not for justice, but for the drama of power on display. Newspapers printed caricatures of monarchs and politicians as playing cards, fragile and interchangeable, always one misstep from collapse. The Queen's authority is loud, but brittle, held together by ritual and the constant threat of violence. In Wonderland, as in the world outside, power depends on keeping everyone afraid and uncertain. The slightest breeze, a question, a mistake, could bring the whole structure tumbling down. The real lesson is not about cruelty, but about how easily fear can be mistaken for strength. The smell of damp stone, the clink of iron keys, the distant rattle of hinges. Lantern light picks out rows of iron beds, corridors that echo with the soft, restless breathing of people counted like entries in a book. It feels cold, clinical, unrelenting. Wonderland was not a trippy dream. It was a survival guide for a girl lost in the rigid, crumbling logic of the Victorian era. Social exile of the mad, overcrowded ledgers. County asylum ledgers from the late 1860s tell a story of relentless arithmetic. Designed for 800 patients, Hanwell Asylum held more than 1,000 by 1870. Lunacy commissioners reported that across England and Wales, asylums ran 20 to 30% over capacity, with new wings built as fast as funds allowed, never quite catching up. Corridors meant for quiet recovery became holding pens, packed with iron beds and restless bodies. Children were not spared. Casebooks record boys and girls admitted for fancy delusions or excess of imagination, terms scribbled in the margins, their stories lost between columns of numbers. Some were as young as 9, committed after fits of daydreaming or unruly play. In a system obsessed with order, imagination itself became a liability. For every child locked away, the ledgers grew heavier, their pages a silent indictment of a society that feared what it could not measure or control. Victorian anxieties may fade, but the world still invents new wonderlands, places where logic twists and power rules by fear. As conformity pressures sharpen today, Alice's struggle echoes louder than ever. The real nightmare? It is how easily we normalize the madness. Which Wonderland character are you running from? If you value uncovering the dark, hidden legacies that history tried to bury, leave a like and subscribe to join our community of mystic seekers. Which Wonderland character do you relate to the most? Let us know in the comments below.